Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to day 94 of Humanity Rising. Virtually every day since May 22nd, Ubiquity University, and as of today, 312 partnering organizations from around the world have come together to create an open space between 5 o'clock and 6:30 p.m. Central European Time, Monday through Friday, so that people from all over the world can simply come together and share their experiences of what it's like to navigate through this extraordinary pandemic that has put us into lockdown and social distancing and hyper alertness about our health, and how we can come together to ensure that the world, as we move through and beyond the pandemic, can become safer and healthier and more sustainable and more resilient as we move into the future. One of the things that is beginning to dawn on everybody as we are now 6-7 months into the pandemic is that it's not going away. Worldwide, reported cases are upwards of now 30 million. There were 307,000 new cases reported just over the last 24 hours. 95,000 cases were in India alone. Israel is heading into another lockdown. In the United States, 4% of the human population, we're approaching 25% of all the reported cases and all the actual deaths due to government incompetence at almost criminal levels. The highest COVID cases now in the United States are in North and South Dakota. Both governors are refusing to let anyone wear a mask. People just congregate as if nothing's happening. And guess what? The COVID cases are going through the roof. In addition to which, there is climate change. There's fires in California, record-breaking heat. There's fires also across Siberia, cumulatively the size of the whole country of Greece. According to the reports today, the only place on Earth where there's no COVID, where there are humans, is in Antarctica, where there's 1,000 scientists that have been sort of hibernating away for the winter. They're coming out, and so far, there's no reported cases of COVID-19. In the middle of all this, through all this, we have to navigate. And we not only have to navigate and ensure survival in this multi-dimensional kind of catastrophe in slow motion that is engulfing the world. We have to try to solve the problems so that it doesn't happen again. We have to negotiate through an increasingly polarized social situation that's being exacerbated by social media and governing elites that are dividing and conquering as people and imperiums have done since time immemorial, dividing now not enemies from friends, but the public inside our countries from each other. So the question all of us need to grapple with is, in this sea of chaos that shows no sign of getting better, what can we do personally, as a family, as a community, to stay healthy, to stay positive, to thrive if at all possible, when the world economy is basically in shambles and coming to a standstill? And I would say that the most consistent theme from the beginning of Humanity Rising has been the theme of coherence. We started on May 22nd with a heart coherence meditation. We've had the HeartMath Institute convene a number of sessions on heart coherence. We've had a simple practice of just listening to our hearts, listening to our heartbeats in a spirit of gratitude. And I would venture that coherence of the heart, coherence of our beings, is the most important practice any of us can engage in right now. Because if we aren't internally coherent, the centrifugal force of the incoherence is going to sap our strength, undermine our positivity, and sap our souls. So as often as we can, we're having sessions on one form of coherence or another. Last week, we heard from a professor of the Children's Hospital in Basel, Switzerland, about a whole field of heart coherence medicine that he is now galvanizing with medical partners from around the world. Today, we want to turn to the whole notion of coherence in music. Data shows worldwide that if you're in a creative act of music or any kind of artistic endeavor, your brain waves are at the same frequency as if you're in deep meditation. So using music to induce and sustain heart coherence is a worthy subject that we now want to explore. So thank you all for joining. We welcome all of our partners through the live streaming. We're delighted that we're partnering, we're co-broadcasting all week this week with 11 days of global unity that commenced on September 11th and will conclude on September 21st. We're partnering with dozens of organizations all over the world as we approach the fall equinox and a UN week and global unity week. And so we're very, very honored to be in these kinds of partnerships. So I turn it over now to my friend and colleague, my co-moderator, Sabinije van Gaffke. Sabinije.
Thank you so much, Jim. And I also want to extend a warm welcome to all our viewers from all over the world. I mean, it's amazing to not only see, but sense your engagement, turning up here day in and day out, and not least also in the Zoom call, in the chat, really contributing to the conversations, because we truly are all in this together. And I think, Jim, it's been like 570 something speakers already since Humanity Rising started a few months ago. And it's amazing also to see the engagement, and of course, all the other platforms that are engaging in the same purpose, to really be a catalyst for change. And speaking of coherence, I can sense already the fluidity and coherence with just the title of today's session, that's creating coherence through music and art. And I think at times humanity tends to forget this uncomparable and immense, as well as subtle, impact that art and music and sound truly can have upon us. I mean, because art, music, and culture truly can change the world. And some say our universe was created by sound, whether it's a big bang or ohm. And there's quite a bit of evidence that sound waves were crucial already in creating the universe. And I also remember a quote by Victor Hugo, who said that music expresses that which cannot be put into words and that which cannot remain silent. And I use that quote because in these times, these turbulent, fear-based, uncertain times, it really is also the rebirth of let's say, a new age of the Renaissance, where music, art, film, social media, all these different entities that can utilize the expression of art and music to really convey a messaging that can impact us on an individual basis, on a societal basis, on a sort of humanitarian basis. And I think that is also the treasure of art and music, is that it is such a connector. It can so connect and unify us. I mean, I just remember We Are the World with Bob Geldof, just a song like that, which really had such an impact on the peace process and poverty and so forth. So there's so much we can do. And that sort of sensory magic that happens with music and sound, where we as people nearly more interact through our emotions and tactile palette of sensory rather than with our mind. And today's panel, I know, will shed light on the transformational impact of art and music. And we truly have an amazing woman who is also moderating and the initiator of this panel, Dr. Kathleen Riley, who I do want to give a short introduction. She's a musician, a researcher, a visionary who is both highly intuitive and passionate in her mission to help performing artists connect more deeply with their heart's intelligence and create coherence through their music and sound. And she will be hosting this panel that will explore new opportunities to share the arts through online platforms, to create coherence and to awaken people's hearts and bring communities together as we emerge into this post-pandemic world. So with that, I hand over the word to Kathleen and her panel.
Thank you, Sabinije, for that beautiful introduction. And I'm honored and delighted to be with all of you here today. And as one of my gifts that the universe has given me, I have had many, many years of working with the HeartMath Institute. I have several certifications. So Sabinije and Jim asked me if I would lead the Heart Coherence this morning. So I ask us all to just take a moment and connect to our heart centers, and to allow our breath to flow in and out a little more deeply and a little more slowly, but at a rhythm that is comfortable for you. And as we inhale and exhale, we feel that breath going in and out through the heart. And I invite you now to activate a feeling, thought, or attitude of appreciation, gratitude, compassion, caring, kindness, love, patience, or tolerance, all of which are so needed in our world today, but also most importantly within ourselves. For when we bring ourselves into this heart space, we fill ourselves up as a vessel so that we, through the electromagnetic field of our hearts, can have a heartfelt impact on ourselves, our families, our communities, and our world. Our hearts are portals that lead us into deeper and deeper coherence and communication with one another and with our world. Thank you. I have been playing piano since I was 4 years old. And one of the things I remember most about this first step was just walking over to the piano that was in my home and touching the keys and having an understanding at a very young age that that sound, that it was a portal, that there was something about it I just loved. And I was fortunate that in my upbringing, I studied not only piano, but I had art and music and dance, and I wrote poetry. And so it's been a journey for me through the arts for many, many years, most of my life. And as Sabinije said, yes, we know through historians, anthropologists, philosophers, and scientists that music has been considered the first language of the universe. Pythagoras lovingly referred to it as the harmony of the spheres. And Plato and Aristotle, among other philosophers, spoke about it being here to restore order and harmony to that which is out of order or in dissonance. And through the rise and falls of civilizations and empires over the centuries, we have witnessed that at the very bottom of the descent, the arts have risen to new heights never before imagined. And I believe and know that we are in such a transformational time right now. My latest research study that was conducted in collaboration with the HeartMath Institute explored the effects of a shared heart-focused intention among members of a string quartet and the effects on themselves, their audience members, and the sound of the music itself. Our results showed a significant effect on the audience. There was a coherence that was achieved at this group level, and the receivers of the sound, they received it through these performances that were guided from intention. Today, it is my great pleasure to present three of my illustrious colleagues to share through music and the visual arts the creating of these portals for all of us to enter into the vibrational sense of coherence. My research with the HeartMath Institute, I will just share one more piece on that, was actually filmed as a documentary. It's 14 minutes, but it's sharing this power that we all have to create, whether we take a paintbrush or begin writing, begin playing an instrument, begin drawing, that this is a beautiful, beautiful way to connect deeply with our hearts. At this point, I would love to turn this part of the program over to my dear colleague and friend, Frederic Chiu, who I know for many years, a pianist, and his lovely wife, Jeanine Esposito. They're going to take us on the first part of this through a journey, through music, into their collaborative, amazing initiative at Beachward Arts and Innovations, which they will share so much about with you. And then Jeanine, in her visionary field of being an artist and a creative person, and all the wonderful things she's doing. Then it'll come back to me, and then we'll take a brief moment and we'll go across the oceans and visit with our dear friend, Peter Bremers. So welcome, Frederic and Jeanine.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's such a pleasure to be on. You and I go way back, I think when you were still a pianist only, and I was only a pianist as well. And you started experimenting and doing research with biofeedback, which was so eye-opening for me as a pianist at the time. And it's just wonderful to see how you have evolved and opened up and brought in so many different elements. And for my life too, during this same period, it's opened up in different ways. And so Jeanine and I are going to share some of that at the end of our little segment here. You know, for me, I didn't have that passion that Kathleen spoke of, you know, drawing me to the piano. I played piano when I was young, 6 years old, and I played really well, and it came very easily. And I think I'm in that camp where you listen to your teachers and you listen to your parents and you take step by step and you just see yourself advancing, and you're learning how to learn and putting in the 10,000 hours. And it wasn't until I was in my early 20s that I realized I have this incredible skill, and when I had the ability to turn that around. And I think that that's when I realized the importance of music, the power of music, and how being a pianist and training to be a pianist. And I say this to my piano students: you're getting the best training to be a human via training to be a pianist. You're training your body through all the different exercises and the regimens that we do. We train ourselves in accuracy and strength, in precision, in coordination, in stamina. We train our whole bodies, and we train our mind. We pianists in particular, we're memorizing our music and going out on stage to play an hour and a half, 2 hours of music from memory. We study theory, we study history, and in particular for piano, we're multitasking. We're playing a melody and an accompaniment. At the very first lesson, play this, that's the melody, play this, that's the accompaniment, and we're doing the two at the same time. And to have that very conscious multitasking is an incredible training for the mind. And then of course the heart, going out on stage and performing alone to an audience of thousands is not something that most people do. And it brings up all sorts of emotional things having to do with stage fright, having to do with discipline, having to do with communication. And then in the role of being a collaborator with other musicians or other creators, dealing with teachers, dealing with students, being a pianist puts you in the center of an amazing universe that invites you, almost forces you to interact at so many different levels with humanity. And that's something that perhaps a more traditional or traditionally encouraged classical pianists can shy away from. We're one of the dangers of being a pianist is that one can feel completely self-sufficient. We have 400 years of music that we can play, pick and choose at will, and we can play it all alone without having to deal with anybody if we don't want to, and make beautiful music and occupy our whole lives. And that's the danger, is that we can isolate ourselves from the rest of the world and be totally fine and fulfilled. And yet that's the opposite of what is true. Being a pianist opens your mind, opens your heart, opens your body to everybody and everything, and should create a sense of empathy and understanding of anything that anybody else is going through. And that's certainly the case today. I've collaborated with storytellers and dancers and clowns, actors, and every time I do that, it brings a new perspective on the music that I'm playing, which is very often the most traditional Chopin, Liszt, Beethoven, Debussy. And I think that this music has persisted over the centuries because there is something deep and universal about it, but it has to be relived, rethought, recreated, and presented in a way that's relevant to people today. And that's been my great pleasure and challenge, is how to present this music in a way that really brings people to it, to be attracted to it, to be changed by that music. And I think that's where Kathleen, you and I have really connected at that level of how to use our music training to really better the world in a way that we can really contribute. I'm going to share just a short clip of a video that kind of exemplifies some of the things that really fascinate me. And I'll just give a little context before switching over to that. It is music by Chopin, the Rondo in C major, one of his early pieces from that he wrote when he was a teenager. And this touches on a couple of things. Chopin, of course, I was named after Chopin with the French spelling of the name Frederic. And my parents, I don't think, when they gave me that name, I don't think they envisioned that I would actually become a concert pianist, but there I did. So there's that tie. I love the fact that Chopin, who is so well known, has in his repertoire, in his oeuvre, pieces that are completely unknown, like the 4 rondos, which are major pieces. And so this represents something that I have tried to do, play incredible music, but not just the standards that have been judged to be the top level, but to make my own judgments and to explore and to bring people to pieces that I really feel are worthy. So this is one of the unique pieces in Chopin's repertoire. This is the only 2-piano piece that Chopin wrote. And so now bringing in another aspect of what I have been exploring is the technology side of things. I've been a Yamaha artist for over 30 years and working with them very closely to as they develop their hybrid instruments, not just the great acoustic pianos that they make, but integrating technology so that you have a piano that can turn off the hammers and have sampled sound coming through headphones. A piano that has a soundboard that's amplified so that you can bring in other audio signals into the piano and have it play out of the piano soundboard. An instrument, a beautiful piano, but that doesn't have strings. That takes a very small footprint, but creates the sound of a concert grand. A piano that can connect to the internet and remote control other pianos around the world. I did a concert where from my home, I played a piano that was directly connected in real time to 100 pianos around the world and played a concert to a small audience here and small audiences around each of those instruments. And in the end, it added up to thousands of people live. So those are the kinds of things that I'm exploring with the piano, with colleagues, with Yamaha. So I just wanted to share this video, and I'm going to test a little technology. This is a 2-piano rondo by Chopin. I'm just going to play a few minutes of this. Just so you can understand what's happening, this is a performance of live and virtual. It's me playing on both instruments. On one side is live, and you'll understand when you see the setup. And the other side is me a live recording onto Disclavier, which doesn't record the audio. It actually records the motions of the keys and the pedals. And you'll see that in the video, some of the camera angles. You'll actually see the keys moving, and it's making the second piano play. So I'm also watching my video to watch for cues so that everything is lined up like a good piano duo should be. So I think you'll enjoy the music, and I hope you're fascinated also by the technology.
Frederic, we're not seeing the video. Maybe you could restart, please.
Let me try and reshare.
Click the box in the lower corner.
Sorry about that. Can you see it now?
Yeah, we're good.
My apologies for that. I'm going to stop it there. The piece goes on, but I think you get the point. So I think that's all I need to share about what I'm doing with music. I'm going to turn it over to Jeanine, and she's going to provide the context for all of her work in all these different fields, and then we'll talk a little bit about Beechwood and how we have collaborated and combined our perspectives. So.
Okay, thanks, Frederic. So my background is very different from Frederic's, but one of the things that really connects Frederic and I is that we are both curious seekers in life. And I think that that is not only what connects us, but what helps each of us constantly push our work beyond what is supposed to be standard for what you do. So I spent the many years working with Fortune 500 companies globally, and at first with market research and strategy. But I got into innovation very, very early on, before people really actually used the term. And I, because of that, started my own consulting firm that was a kind of strategic innovation. But in doing that work, it always struck me that I was leading big global teams through innovation, but the process of innovation requires you to be curious. It also requires you to be open. And most importantly, it requires you to listen and listen for the truth. And I felt that the whole time I was doing that, I felt the impact wasn't just on companies being able to innovate, but it was on those teams that I was leading, pushing them to go beyond what they have just been trained to do, and to start to listen, and to start to listen for the truth in their customers and their communities that we're trying to serve. And that became, for me, the most important thing. I would say that probably no matter what work I've been doing, for me, I always move toward the truth, because I think we have a relationship with the truth that we say we want it and we want to know it, but we also have an ambivalence. And so I really see my innovation work being about being brave enough to ask the right questions to get to the truth, regardless of what that means you should go out there with. And about I went from working with a lot of consumer goods companies to working in healthcare. And it was there that I really felt the power of some of these innovation tools and the power that it has on people's hearts. Because when you do empathy mapping in the right way, you are getting to what matters underneath, not just the what. And so about 7 years ago, I decided to switch my practice after 25 years to work with organizations in the public sector, universities and schools. And I started working with libraries, and it was amazing. Libraries are amazing places, and these are librarians, and libraries are completely devoted to community. And teaching librarians how to innovate and they have such access to communities and how to ask questions that really get at the heart of what people need, has been amazing. And I was lucky enough to work with Connecticut State Library that got a very large grant that brought my program around to 60 libraries across 14 states. And I just finished that. And then during this period of lockdown, where a lot of libraries are closed and not having access to their communities, I conducted some unprecedented conversations with library directors, and now have come up with a whole suite of empathy mapping tools for libraries to use to connect back with their communities, which are feeling very vulnerable right now. So I'm proud of that work, and it is really the listening, being curious and listening for the truth that really drives that. I'm also, since this is about the coherence of the arts, I'm also a visual artist, and I have had a number of different solo shows and gotten some awards, but mostly I would have to say that, and I think Frederic's just going to have some images of my artwork, but I have really two bodies of work. One is working with paper, which all of the things that you see are all made with many layers of paper or paper pulp. And I really loved working with paper because of the translucency, but all of my work starts with meaning. All of my work is an effort to talk about things. This is about forgiveness, this piece you're seeing now, for example. And I really attempt to find the truth in everything, particularly in what we as human beings are going through. And art, for me, is the only way to say some of these things or explore some of these things. This piece that you're seeing right now, it says trust, growth, immersion. It's about letting yourself stand in the rain and letting yourself kind of have things wash through you that bring you to the truth. So that's just a little bit about my artwork. In addition to the paper sculpting that I've done, I also use everyday materials. This piece that you're seeing now is about climate change, and it's called Fossil Wall. And it's made up of the kind of packaging that we're seeing every day, that we open every day, that sometimes we can't avoid. And those things are going to last thousands of years, which means they're going to create these fossils, if not the actual thing. And people are going to be digging up, what are these shapes? What was it that we were doing? And this is another piece, it's called Religiously, where I made rosaries out of all kinds of prescription meds. And I also put on the walls the the side effects of all those meds that we're using. This is a hair piece made of 365 beads of my own hair made every day for a year. It's called accumulated losses. So I will use almost anything to try and express. This is about what the world is doing to children, turning them away at borders, and you know, this is Rosy Tomorrows, and it's about where are the rosy tomorrows for some of these children that we're doing these awful things to. So my artwork is just another way for me to explore the truth, that even hard truths that are hard for us to face. So Frederic is my partner in crime. I'm his partner in crime. And it's all really about, for us, collaboration and being open and being a curious seeker in life. And that's how we ended up starting Beechwood. It's called Beechwood Arts and Innovation because we really believe, as Frederic was just telling you, we think that technology, just like it's doing now, has a way of reaching more people and bringing us closer together. And that's kind of part of the mission of Beechwood, in addition to bringing all the arts together in collaboration. Me being a visual artist and Frederic being a musician, we noticed that a lot of arts organizations have separate audiences for these, and we feel that the coherence of the arts just gets stronger when we bring it all together. So that's how we ended up starting Beechwood Arts.
So we have some of our followers explain.
Yes,
or
it's
try
better to have other
explain.
people explain Beechwood than
Let's see what
us.
they say. This is a 4-minute little intro to Beechwood.
It's hard to describe to anyone what it's like.
I can't really describe it to you.
You know, you're about to be really wowed. You're going to be impressed.
You just want to be there.
Oh, I would highly recommend coming to Beechwood.
The overall vibe of Beechwood is they're very accepting, and everyone that walks through the door, you get a hug. It's just very friendly.
We were touched by the openness and the friendliness of everybody.
But they make you feel like you and you alone are visiting that house, but it was then the intimacy.
It is the intimacy.
The intimacy.
There's a sense of community and a belonging there. It's almost like family.
There are, of course, the participating artists, but the audience is a collaborator as well. So you get this really immersive experience that is unique, I think, of any place that I've ever been.
And the energy in the room just got higher and higher until by the time we finished, you know, people were just roaring. And as a performer, you love that.
My friends, if everywhere in the world, just for a moment, people would gather like this and listen to the music and be inspired.
It feels like you know that you're performing for an audience that is with you all the way.
The general vibe of Beechwood is very collaborative, very artistic, a little bit of everything. You get to come in and see all kinds of diversity in arts.
Poetry, the performances, and bringing the community together.
My eyes had seen things that were great. My palate had tasted something that was great. I got an opportunity to participate and perform and heart to heart create a connection. So it really is a wonderful way to combine art and to exemplify the impact that art can have. The environment invites that.
It was just this whole immersion that, you know, was just like nobody else had done that.
I think one of the things that makes Beechwood unique is Frederic and Jeanine.
Frederic and Jeanine.
Frederic and Jeanine.
Jeanine and Frederic set a really great vibe. It's laid back and curious at the same time, and inviting. It's I think people get a perspective that the salon is something that is exclusive, and in fact at Beechwood it's inclusive.
We came across this 1806 house completely by accident. But when we saw it, immediately we said, this is a very special place. And when we went outside and saw this unusual copper beech tree with a network of roots that had been pushing into the ground for 300 years, and yet was completely vibrant with new branches and new leaves shooting out. And we said, this is a great model for artistic creativity in the 21st century.
Yeah, and we had understood from the work that we had been doing that collaboration is the way of the future, and we wanted to create a space for that. We wanted to invite creators of all genres and generations and backgrounds to come to the space and collaborate and share ideas and explore and experiment and be inspired to create something new that had never been done before. And they did come, creators of all kinds, and they have defined what Beechwood has become. Together, we have woven a tapestry of creativity and community that is innovative, but also very meaningful and deeply inspiring for everyone who participates. By coming together, they've created something that's truly unique.
So since we did this a few years ago, we've evolved according to what the community has asked us to do, taking all the activities. We do the salons, we have community conversations, we have arts shows, open houses, we have stories, storytelling, everything that brings people together through the arts. And it's been really a call by the community to help us do that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that one of the most, I see that someone's asking where Beechwood is. It's in Westport, Connecticut, but as you'll hear in a minute, you're going to be able to join Beechwood from wherever you are, especially during this particular period of time. And I think that one of the most important things isn't not just the collaboration, the breaking of the fourth wall, but it's also the conversation. We run community conversations at the end of everything that we do. And we started actually experimenting with virtual streaming and programming at the end of 2016, when the US was pretty divided over the election, and we felt like we wanted to do something that brought everyone together and that had a much bigger outreach than we could fit in our 65-person music room. And we started something called the We Events, which was to put the we back in social media. And basically we brought a bunch of musicians to Beechwood and we live streamed a concert with no audience. And this was before
4 or 5 years ago.
all of us had to do that. It was about 4 or 5 years ago. And we got 5,000 people to join us online. And it was really amazing. So when the pandemic hit, we had just finished a very big winter season that ended with a huge concert of 400 people at on March 5th. And then the next week, everything was closed. And so we decided, even though we weren't supposed to do any programs until June, we decided to jump in. And we did 5 weeks of programming starting in a week from then. And we did this all through April, where we did We Events, where we had live performances as well as interviews with people. And we did that for 5 weeks. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I just want to show a little clip of some of the things that were happening there. I hope everybody can see that. This is, I won't have the sound on, just talk over it. This is a world premiere that we did of a piece by great composer Gao Ping, one of the celebrated composers in China. He wrote it while in lockdown in Beijing, and this is in memory of Dr. Li Wenyang, who was a Chinese doctor who was one of the first to raise the alarm about COVID. And he was also one of the first deaths, one of the first victims. And he wrote this, Gao Ping wrote this piece in his honor and couldn't get it performed. And so he and I talked, and I said we could do a performance of this live virtual. And I asked my brother, who was first violinist of the Chicago Symphony, and he was, of course, on furlough. And so we figured out a way, and this was one of the very first attempts to do this kind of chamber music remotely, sending videos to each other with the conductor track, and then doing a live performance, which you just saw.
And then we were also able to bring Gaffke himself up. I think it was 3 a.m. for him or something, but to talk about it. And so it was that kind of thing, a lot of live performances and interviews and, you know, that kind of thing we did in the WE events.
And I'm just going to forward through some of this stuff. One of the things that happened after COVID struck, we did these many weeks of programming, and then when we just stopped that, all of a sudden Black Lives Matter flared up. The murder of George Floyd really brought that to a head, and as an organization, we want to address the relevant issues, and so we needed to do something, and we created a festival called Amplify.
Can I just say, I think a very important part of our response to this is we had already many Black artists, Black performers that have been here at Beechwood over the last 10 years since we started. And what we did was we went out, this is about listening. First thing we did was we went out to them and we talked to many of them personally on the phone and said what would help, rather than coming up with our own version of it. And so that these are the things that came out of it. You just saw that these lawn signs that were painted, and basically artists came with their masks, picked up a lawn sign, and then brought it back, and we created a river of amplified voices. And what you're seeing on the screen right now is the tree is actually 400 years old, not 300 as we originally thought. And a lot of the performers, and these were all Black artists and performers, they felt very connected to that tree because it's been around since the start of slavery, and they felt it was a witness. So many of them recorded their performances under the tree. And we then also talked to them live, and we streamed their performances. And it was a 2-week festival. We did 9 performances, and I think we had 20 something pieces of artwork that we did all very quickly. And then at the end, we were led in a Voicing the Heart session by Fred Johnson, who's an amazing jazz singer, but who's also been trained in doing these Voicing the Heart sessions. So we brought everyone together, and we invited some young people to join us, because the younger generation there's something very different about them and their perspective. They're not taking the rules and just implementing them. They're questioning a lot of things. And so we wanted them to join us for that Voicing the Heart session.
And I think that just to close on our section about Beechwood, really, we have felt through the arts a coherence between the two of us that brought us to create Beechwood. And then through Beechwood, we felt a coherence between all the people who have become involved, who come as audience members and then become active participants. And I think that's the theme of today's show, is how the arts draw people together and bring us all to the same wavelength so that we can all do something greater than ourselves. And through the arts, I think that's one of the best things that we can do. So Kathleen, I'll turn it back to you and let you introduce Peter. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You two are very, very special people. And I'm so grateful that I've been friends with you for so many years. And I did put in the chat's going like crazy. So please go in there and see all of your new inspired people by what you just shared. But
I see some of them. We'll if you go to beechwoodarts.org, you can sign up for our newsletter, and then you'll have access to all the virtual stuff we do.
Yeah, why don't you just type it in the chat? Good. Oh, somebody already just did it. Great. All right. Well, I was just beaming ear to ear while you were all sharing. So thank you again. And now, as I said, we're going to go across the ocean and we're going to have a visit with Peter Bremers. And he is an amazing artist. He's going to share a lot of his works with you by sharing screen. But, you know, for him, making art is a dedication to creation. It's a spiritual quest, an act of love, and a challenging, exciting journey. And as he said in his artist statement, that his attempt to the best of his abilities to give his ever-changing vision of beauty to this world, to counter the vast mass of man-made ugliness, it's up to the world to decide if it is of any value. All right, so Peter, my dear friend, I turn this over to you. Are you ready, Peter? Oops.
The host will need to give me permission to show my video.
You can just use the share screen to show the video. Let's see what's going on here. Your camera's off, Peter, so try that. Can you start your video?
Yes, I can. Because
there you go.
Can you see me?
Yeah, we're good.
That's wonderful. Okay. Well, first of all, that was absolutely wonderful to listen to my two colleagues and all that they do. Art is all about communication, especially communicating what is so difficult to put into words. And it's always a challenge to do that anyway. But I am not going to be too much in your screen. I'm actually going to show you a bit of my work. And I'm going to start with something that was a necessity for me at the very beginning of being locked down by COVID. And I'm just going to share this with you. And please acknowledge if you can all see this. Are you able to see this?
Yeah, Peter, we can see it.
Wonderful. I think the message may be quite clear. We take vitamins for our body and for our health. But art, in my opinion, we need as a necessity to feed our soul, to heal our spirit, to be uplifted, to be energized, to be inspired. And without the arts, what would the world be like? Can you imagine? Somebody once said to me, this was somebody who worked for the WHO, and we had a relationship, and she said to me, but art doesn't fill a belly. If you're hungry, art won't fill your belly. And I thought about that for a long time. And it made me sad to hear her say that, because in my opinion, even though art doesn't fill your body, your belly, it fills your heart, it fills your mind, it fills your brain with inspiration, with beauty. And for me, art is a healer. Art is a necessity in this really challenging times that we are in right now. So I think art can help to find coherence, to find acceptance, to find new ways to explore and to express ourselves. So I'm going to share with you some of my work, and I'm going to start with a piece that, an installation that I did for the Fort Wayne Museum of Art in Fort Wayne, Indiana in 2018. And the title of the whole exhibition was Looking Beyond the Mirror. And this specific, I'm going to show you both installations. This specific one is very, very dear to me. It's called Seven Bodies. So in my opinion, we have these amazing bodies that have fantastic potential. But even though people that train their physical body, which you're seeing right now, to the extent where they can run 100 yards in under 9 seconds, other people will never be able to do that, even if they train all day long. So we as human beings have these potentials, but we may not have the potentials to develop all our 7 bodies in an equal way. This is the mental bodies. People that have the sharpest brains, inventors, that use their creativity in coherence with their brain to bring solutions to problems coming from the mind and from the soul. The emotional body. We all know our emotional body. We all know what happens when we're sad, or when let's say when we're in love. When we're in love, our emotional body is just beaming and we are bigger than life. You know, you all remember that feeling of falling in love and being so excited and up and happy. This one is a very important one to me, and I'll get back to that later on with my very newest work. It's called the vibrational body. In general, we are not walking around day in, day out being so aware of our vibrational body. But what is interesting is that we are communicating with other people on a vibrational level, even before we've had exchanged a single word. And if there is an energy in that communication of vibrations, that energy will want us to connect and to talk or meet that other person. So the vibrational body is present without us being able to see it, but we can feel it. And if we're aware of it, we can actually change our vibrational body. We can open doors in our being, in our vibrational being. This is a spiritual body. For me, spirituality is more than meditating 8 hours a day to reach a certain enlightenment. For me, the spiritual body is about awareness. You can have spiritual moments throughout the day, but just little moments of awareness. And it can help you to make yourself a more complete human being, but also to be more open to that what other people, we're all spiritual bodies after all, that what other people are giving to us, are gifting us with. Then for me, of course, as a sculptor, the most important body, apart from one, which is the creative body. We are all creative beings. We can all create. I meet people that say to me, oh, but you're an artist. I could never do what you do. And to me, that is, with all respect, that is a foolish remark to make, because yes, you can. It just may not look the same. It could be something completely different. You know, if for instance, just to say, if Frederic, who just showed us this amazing music and how he plays with himself in dialogue with himself, if he would say, oh, but you know, I cannot do what you do, I would say, but I can't do what you do. We all have our creative potential. It's just a matter of, do we want to put our energy into developing our creative body? Last but not least, the ethereal body. When you look into this glass sculpture, which is about 40-inch tall, they're all the same shape and size, you see a golden beam. This golden beam is what connects our earth, us with our earth, and with the sky, with the heavens, if you like. For me, it's the connection that is there before we are born, before we come into this physical body. And it's what is left when we croak and we're ashes to ashes. It's the core of who we are as spiritual beings, as ethereal beings, as particles of creation, as some might call it particles of God. I call it particles of creation because I like to keep it as uniform as possible. So the 7 bodies. Glass is a magnificent material. When you think about it, you'll realize it is the only material that is actually 4-dimensional. You can not just see the front and the back, but you can also look inside the glass. This is the only material that allows you to actually crawl into it just by using your eyes and opening your soul to venture into a sculpture. Now, I'll take you to the next installation in the same museum show. To me, perception is something that I've always been very interested in and intrigued in. I've traveled a lot, and one of the places I visited was the Antarctic on a square rigger 3-master. One of the things that really kind of became very specific to me was how each and every one had their own perception, their own experience. But even if we would be looking at the same thing, we weren't seeing the same thing. We didn't feel the same way. And there is a fairly simple explanation for that. We are not the same. We're equal, but we're not the same. Each one of us is a result of who we are, where we're born, who our parents were, what education we had, who our friends are, what books we read, what makes our heart sing, what tickles us, what irritates us, what makes us part of who we are. And I try to make this installation by using the same shape 14 times, but all with the same hole in it that you can look through, but all are a different material. And what's so exciting about that is that just by changing the material, your feeling, your emotional perception changes. So here I just use crystal glass. It shows you the surrounding. Here is glass, the blue one in the front with a structure in it. There were 3 glass pieces. There are 6 in stone. There's a bronze. There's a brushed aluminum. There's a painted aluminum. For our European viewers, I should say aluminium, but you get it. And I use these stones from different parts of the world. This is actually from the Grand Canyon. This is stone that it's an onyx that comes from the Grand Canyon. This is a red glass that turns green because there's uranium in it. White marble. And just to give you an example, what do you think of when you see white marble that's so, what's the word? It looks so innocent here. It's so clean, and I would almost say it's like the white dress of a bride. You know, it's an open page, a blank canvas. You just look inside the glass, or detail of the bronze. Onyx from Utah, beautiful Bolivian stone. and this one is very dear to me. This is chrome, it's chrome plated bronze. And what I love about it is that it doesn't just allow you to look through the hole, it reflects you at the same time as it reflects everything it's in its surrounding. Talking about coherence. Now here's the interesting thing about this installation. When I afterwards asked people how they experienced this installation, they said, "Oh, it's beautiful, all these different materials and these different shapes, and yeah, it's wonderful." I said, "How do you mean different shapes?" "Well, there's all different shapes." They didn't see that it's actually all the same shape. And this was for me the complete proof in the pudding, so to say, that just by changing the material, it changes people's perception. So all of a sudden, there is this realization that you are looking at the same shape, but you experience it completely different. And for instance, somebody said to me, when I look at your black marble piece, it reminds me of a graveyard. It reminds me of a tombstone. So in a way, when we look at something, we directly connect it to an experience that we had, a memory. So there was only one corner in this space where you could actually see all the pieces without one being in front of the other. Some people did figure out where to stand to actually be able to see that. So to close off this work of art, this group of sculptures, the reason why I'm showing it to you today is because there cannot be coherence if we don't have acceptance. If we cannot accept that someone else doesn't see, doesn't perceive, or doesn't feel what we see, perceive, and feel, if we cannot accept that, we can never have coherence. And I think the biggest problem that we have, I mean, we've always had wars in our fairly young history of this planet, because we've always been convinced that our vision, our perception was the right one and the other ones were wrong. And we tried to convince them, and we did it by sword and later by bullet. So in this time where we not only have to deal with coherence, sorry, with I meant with COVID, but we also have to deal with presidents, with dictators, with political unrest, with Black Lives Matter, the ongoing, the unacceptable ongoing idea of being better than somebody else. I thought this was a work that just totally fits into this, and therefore it's quite up to date, even though it was made from between 2015 and 2017. Which leads me to my newest series of work. It's called Vibrations, and I know I'm running out of time, so I'm going to speed it up a little bit. We are vibrational beings. Everything is in vibration. Even the wooden table that I'm sitting at is in vibration. A stone rock, you know, a rock is still vibrating material because our smallest particles are constantly in vibration, in movement, in energy. So we are as well. And I've been trying to catch vibration in these sculptures, some of them are small, some of them are pretty large, as you will see. Vibration is what can connect us. Vibrations, when two vibrations meet and they're the perfect opposite of each other, we end up with moments of no energy, of no vibration, of overlap. But when two vibrations meet and they are coherent, they can become very strong, and they can lead to, I would say, 1 and 1 is 3. The combined energy becomes a super energy. One of the things that also happens when you're in love and when you can't be without each other for a second. And I can say that because my sweetheart is in America. I'm here in Holland. And due to our closed borders, we haven't been able to see each other for almost 6 months now. Hopefully that will change soon. This one's called Brainwave. Some of these can actually go outside. They're made in special glass that has a low expansion. When I create, when I'm in my studio, I'm allowing myself to completely follow my intuition. It doesn't mean that I don't use my brain. I do use my brain and my creativity, but I allow my hands to become channels. And I feel that often when I'm in flow, when I'm in my studio on my own, I am channeling other entities. And I think through art, we don't just communicate what we ourselves as artists want to put into shape or want to put into playing the piano, but we're connecting with a bigger source. We're connecting with creation, and that makes us connect with everything and everyone. And therefore, I believe that art has the capacity to heal because it can bridge cultures and it can bring us together. And especially in beauty, and as Kathleen said in my introduction, I try to create things of beauty because I have a deep belief that with beauty, we can conquer a lot of ugliness. We can be bigger than ourselves. We can be bigger than our pettiness and our irritations and our bad moods and all of that. And that is also why I post my artiments, which is never about my own work. In my artiments, I post different topics and different samples and different artists from all the 9 different art forms. As I said earlier, some of my glass sculptures can go outside. And this one is the one that I was basically talking about when 2 vibrations come together and they're in coherence, they become more than just 2 elements or 2 sculptures. They become a third. They become in this way a gateway. And these pieces are about 5.5 foot tall. So just to give you an idea of how big some of these works are, a picture of me next to a sculpture that has not been shown to the world yet, apart from pictures on social media. It will be shown in my upcoming solo exhibition that hopefully I will be able to visit myself in the Imagine Museum in St. Petersburg, Florida. So having said that, I leave you with my website, and please feel free to visit it. And if you have any comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your attention, and I'm giving it back to Kathleen. Thank you all.
Oh, thank you, Peter, for that. The chat window is just going crazy. I don't know how we're doing with time, Sabinije or Richard. Do we have a minute or two for us to come into a group here, so that if there's anybody who wants to speak and, you know, address things, do we have a few minutes?
Let's definitely have a few minutes, because with the chat and with everything that's been conveyed, I think that's a great top
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, I'm going to pull us into the gallery with Frederic and Jeanine and Peter. And let's, I don't know, can we do that, Richard? Can we get all of us up here? How do we do that? I guess. There is so much going on over here. So I made a couple of notes. I'm going to start back with one that came up, Frederic, when you were sharing the disc clavier. And I did put in the chat that, of course, my research had been through the Yamaha Disc Clavier Pro for many, many, many years. And that's how we both actually know each other. Yeah. And Catherine Alexander said that she feels that, you know, the comment about, she has said human touch sends a resonant energy that the mechanics don't. But I did comment that you created that. That was you playing it, and then it was playing back. And that my experience with the disc clavier was, especially the Pro model, is the high level of replication. So maybe you would like to share a little bit about that too.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely truth in what the person said. And I think that that's what has pushed Yamaha, and that certainly is what pushed me to explore and to reach for that summit of reproducing touch. And I think that's the whole key. You know, the disc clavier has gone through many generations, and I have to say that the earlier generations did not reproduce enough to be considered touch. The current one is getting very close, and I think that that's what keeps us going, is that we're striving for that perfection.
Yes, and it's just it's one of those intangibles, you know. But I love that technology is trying to create a vehicle through which we can share at that level. I'm going to bring in a question for Peter, and Kurt asked if people were allowed to touch your pieces in the exhibition. And everybody wants to put their hands through them. So
yes, they do. They don't just want to put their hands through them, they want to put their heads through them. And they all want to touch glass. The only unfortunate thing about that is that you leave your fingerprints immediately, especially those beautifully highly polished glass pieces. But what I do is I will give people gloves if they really want to touch them. I had a gentleman recently who visited a show, and he was blind and in a wheelchair, and I noticed that his partner was telling him what he was looking at and describing it. And as we all know, touch is a phenomenal eye. I mean, I actually close my eyes and touch my my sculptures with my fingertips to feel if there are still uneven segments or anything like that. So a blind person I knew was going to really be happy and would enjoy touching the glass. So that was the only person where I said, you don't need gloves. You can just go ahead and touch them. Yes.
Yes, and it reminds me when I look at when we send these coherent signals through the heart, we know that the heart sends more signals up into the brain than the brain sends down. And one of the centers that these signals go to is the thalamus. And the thalamus is also the center of the brain that is responsible for all of our sensory output. So when we really think into creating coherence through our hearts, bringing that power of intention in, and that then it's basically, Frederic and I chat about this, it's basically going to our, what we call the inner ear, or just that place where, you know, even with the art, you know, before, it's like that hundredth of a millisecond before you actually create something. You have the intention and you already know. And then the tactile piece, which Peter just brought in too. And of course, for us as pianists and musicians, it's so essential. We are then, that's being transmitted out so that it's speaking. So this is that whole connection in that coherent field through our expression in the arts. And I think that's just so important for people to understand when we take this time to become coherent, to tune in to the coherence. Our potential is limitless with what we can create. And I think that's so beautifully exemplified by these three beautiful souls here today sharing with us. So thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen, for having us.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you guys for sharing your beautiful art. And I'm thrilled to have been able to do this with you. It was fabulous.
Likewise,
great,
for us.
Agreed.
Fun and very, very inspiring. Thank you.
Yes.
Likewise
Thank
for us.
you.
And
Inspire
thank
this
you for
whole audience. So,
Yeah.
and just a word to Frederic and Jeanine and Peter. Stanley has put in the chat that they are gathering in Zoom meeting after the session closes. So there's a link to that. So if you want to go in and chat with people, great, go on in.
Yeah, it could be great fun.
Yeah. Okay, Sabinije.
So Kathleen, Jeanine, Frederic, and Peter, I mean, so many words have already been said, but really thank you so much for showing us. I mean, your amazing art, your talent, and also your artistic expression through art, through sculpture, through music, through sound, and not least how you also convey all the important messaging that lies into these expressions. And I think it was Peter who said, you know, beautify the world. And I know there's another artist, or he's an author, Fyodor Dostoevsky, who actually said, you know, beauty can save the world. And I think that is such a quintessent way of an expression, because it is through beauty, whether it's sound, vibration, music, art, that essence of beauty resonates and vibrates so much with empathy, compassion, and love, and everything that really is part of what nature brings to us each and every day. Wow, Beechwood Arts, what an amazing place, and what an amazing showcase of what happens when artists and intimacy and collaborative action and immersive experience, when they all come together in such a sacred space. I mean, it was absolutely amazing to see. And wow, I think all of us, both in the chat and me, were like, oh, I would love to come and visit. And it sort of reminds me a bit of the quintessence of Burning Man, that when you see, a friend of mine just produced a film called Art on Fire, Burning Man. And when I watched it, it was such a portrayal of what can come to fruition when people, inclusion, diversity, everything come together around a common cause, in this particular sense, like yourselves, art, and what you can create, and the profound connection and unity that also brings. So thank you so much for all that you're doing. And Kathleen as well, thank you so much for all the work you're doing with Heart Coherence, which is the absolute essence and core to creating the future that we want to create, because it's with coherence on every level that we will be able to get there. But it starts with ourselves, and we really need to be facilitated and navigated into this coherence, because it's not a sensory that we have been given the opportunity to really tap into in the way our society has been constructed. But we're getting there, definitely. And I also want to shout out for the 11 Days of Unity, a movement that is going on now from the 11th to the 21st of September, also ties into art, sound, and vibration, but really that movement of how we can create a world for the better. And all of you who are in the chats and all of you on the live streams, thank you so much once again for joining us. Your input, your comments, and just your presence is so important, because you are the ones that also create the ripples of impact that is needed to really amplify all of these sources, individuals, and people doing good in the world, and making us align with a sustainable, peaceful, and just future. And tomorrow we have yet another interesting and important conversation with the escalation of climate change that we all know. We'll be back at between 5 and 6:30, where we have an engineer, Tom Hopkins, who has a solution for climate change, both on stopping global warming and also utilizing clean energy as extra heat that we find in the oceans. So thank you once again for all of your contributions. Stay safe, stay healthy, be kind, and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.